Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Unlike a top 10 list or unlike a worst of the year list, as usual, like I've been doing over the past couple of years, not only do I make a top 10 best of the year list for my personal picks of the year, and not only do I make like a top 5 or a top 10 worst of the year, most of the time it's a top 5 for that one, for films that I really didn't like throughout the course of a film year. But like those other videos, I like to make a number 11 list. And this is a special kind of video where I talk about films that I really enjoyed throughout a certain film year, but they weren't quite good enough to make it to the top 10 best of the year list. And, obviously they're very far away from making the worst of the year list. But, every once in a while there's those films that you really enjoy that aren't quite top 10 best kind of material, but you think it's definitely worth acknowledging these kind of films just to say, hey, I really enjoyed these films. They're not the best of the year. Maybe if you have a chance at Redbox at some point down the line where you need a good movie to watch and so forth. That's kind of what these films are for me. They're kind of the films where you would recommend them. You recommend people go out of their way to see them, but at the same time, it's kind of a cautious warning that these aren't the best of the year. At least for me anyway. Some people might view these as best of the year, but these are films that I think I really enjoyed throughout the course of 2016. That I won't straight up say, oh, that was the best of the year or anything, but these are really good films that I highly recommend. So let's go over this video here where I'm going to talk about some titles that I highly recommend that didn't quite make the top 10 best of the year list, but I still highly recommend these movies. And we're going to start off with X-Men Apocalypse, a film that I really enjoyed. I liked, how the James McAvoy continuation and the Michael Fassbender continuation of their mutant characters, Magneto and Professor Xavier. Really enjoyed the movie. It wasn't quite like Days of Future Past good because that's one X-Men film that I really enjoyed a lot. In fact, that was my favorite film of 2014. I liked X-Men Apocalypse a lot. It's a really well-made movie. There's just enough flaws about it though, or it's just not quite. It doesn't stand out in the crowd like some of the other X-Men films do, and that's kind of why I didn't go crazy over that one. But I still really enjoyed the movie. Another one that came out in 2016 that I really enjoyed was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. I liked the first reboot of Ninja Turtles. I wasn't crazy in love with it. The very original Jim Henson puppeteered creature suits was definitely, that very first of that kind of that series was probably my favorite Ninja Turtle movie, then still to this day it is. But one thing Out of the Shadows did is it really much was in the spirit of the original 1980s TV show and kind of, in a way, a little bit of the comic books as well, and even possibly the video games of Ninja Turtles. And I think that's what I liked about it. I liked how it was very much in the spirit of that original cartoon show. It wasn't blow your mind amazing. It still isn't as good as some of those Jim Henson creature suit Ninja Turtle movies, specifically the first two of those. But I think the fact that they made it in the spirit of the 80s TV show is ultimately what I liked so much about it. Wasn't quite a top 10 kind of material kind of movie, but I really enjoyed the film. And if you like Ninja Turtles, it is worth your time and money to check it out. Another film that almost made my top 10 list, didn't quite make it, but I really enjoyed it. And a lot of people I've talked to who have seen it really enjoyed this movie as well, and that's Midnight Special. It's the new Jeff Nichols movie besides Loving. I know Loving was another film he worked on in 2016 that I unfortunately did not get around to seeing. But, he worked on Mud and Take Shelter and a couple of other bigger films. And what I really liked about Midnight Special is I liked the whole Starman, learning about somebody that has a very unique power that not a lot of people are used to seeing and witnessing with their very eyes and so forth. And I think Midnight Special did a very good job with the chase sequences and making these adults protect this child with the special abilities. But unfortunately, there's enough flaws about it where I couldn't quite put it on my top 10 best of the year list. Specifically, a lot of things that happened in the third act in it that I didn't go crazy over. But overall, it's a really good movie that I highly recommend. So if you have not seen Midnight Special yet, I do recommend that one. Another film I really enjoyed was Jason Bourne. Once again, wasn't quite the Bourne Ultimatum kind of quality with that franchise, but I really enjoyed the movie. It's a fun action movie. I kind of like that they did find a different writer to work on this. It was kind of, I thought it added a more fresher take on that character for me personally. And everybody who was worked on the previous Jason Bourne films wasn't completely gone. Julia Stiles reprised her character. Of course, Matt Damon reprised his character. And then Paul Greengrass, who worked on the second and third Jason Bourne film, returned for this one. Really enjoyed the movie. Wasn't completely crazy over this movie, obviously. But if you haven't seen Jason Bourne, I do recommend that one as well. Another one that almost made my top 10 list as well, but it didn't quite make it because the 10 films I ended up putting on there I thought were better than this movie, and that's 10 Cloverfield Lane, a very surprising spinoff to Cloverfield. I like how it was very much in a different direction than the first movie. The first movie was more so a big monster movie. The second one was more so a psychological thriller with a metaphoric monster in the sense that one of the people in this bunker is kind of a monster in general. Not like a big Godzilla monster, obviously, or anything like that. But I liked the whole being stuck with this bunker with this guy where you really don't quite trust him, and the other person is kind of off as well, and you just really don't know what to think of these three people at first. And it was just a very interesting movie. I liked I thought the follow up was very good. How they tied it in with Cloverfield was good for the most part. There's a couple things about the tie-in that I thought could have been a little bit better to make it more so a Cloverfield movie. But I really enjoyed it. If you like psychological thrillers that take place mostly in one location, 10 Cloverfield Lane does the trick very well. Another film I really enjoyed was The Shallows. Very interesting shark movie. Obviously not as good as Jaws. Jaws will forever be probably everybody's favorite shark movie, now until the end of time, obviously, probably, and definitely one of Spielberg's best films. But what The Shallows did really well is it kind of understood what made Jaws so successful with its own concept. It was its own movie, but it followed the rules that Jaws did so well, hiding the shark, and when the shark show up, make him very scary, make him very fast, make it seem like the lead character or whoever the shark is chasing has very little chance of survival of outswimming the shark and so forth. So I thought The Shallows was very intense, very scary at times. Definitely one of the better shark films I've seen over the years. There really hasn't been a lot of good ones. Probably the best shark film maybe since Open Water. That's not saying a lot because Open Water had its flaws as well. But I really enjoyed The Shallows. So if you like shark films, if you just need a really good shark film that maybe isn't quite good as Jaws, but kind of maybe in the same league as Open Water or in that same league, The Shallows does do the trick very well. Another film that I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed in 2016 that I really enjoyed, I didn't go completely crazy over this movie, but I really recommend this one for those who haven't seen it, and I gave it a good review back when I reviewed it, was Moana. Very good original Disney movie. Definitely interesting take on like the South Pacific and with their mythology. And I just really enjoyed how Disney kind of took on a different kind of story. A lot of people were worried that it was going to feel too much like Lilo and Stitch. I think they definitely ignored that in the right way. They definitely made it its own movie with a very interesting independent lead actress character. And Dwayne Johnson was a lot of fun as his kind of the goofy sidekick kind of character as well. So if you haven't seen Moana, that's another film I highly recommend. One film that I'm sure I think it has showed up on quite a few top 10 lists. Unfortunately, didn't make mine because I thought there was a couple flaws with the movie, and that's Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I love Gareth Edwards. I love the Star Wars franchise, specifically the original trilogy and The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens was my favorite film of last year. So I went into this film with a lot of expectations, which I probably shouldn't have done after seeing it. But I really enjoyed the movie. It was a very fun Star Wars spin-off continuation of whatever you want to call it. Didn't go crazy over the movie. I thought some of the characterization could have been better. Would have liked to have seen more done with Darth Vader because he is in the movie. Fortunately, he's not in the movie as long as you would want him to be. And it's one of those things where when the film does really well, it does really well, but it doesn't focus on those really well segments as well as some of the weaker, not so much caring about segments. So I thought they could have divided the time a little bit better and would have devoted more time maybe to say to Darth Vader or to making the team more likable or building the characters more or whatever. They could have done something with it to make it better. Really enjoyed the movie. Couldn't quite put it on my top 10 list. Didn't enjoy it that much, but I do recommend the movie. Another film that I had that I actually really enjoyed, I feel like I'm one of the few people that actually does like the movie. It seems like a lot of people didn't like this one. Really anticipated it in 2016. Was happy for the most part with it. There was obviously a lot of things that could have been changed with it, and that's Assassin's Creed. Really enjoyed the movie. We haven't quite figured out how to do a video game film adaptation quite yet. But what I thought the film did very well is it gave me hope that a video game film adaptation can still happen in the right way. Maybe it won't be Assassin's Creed as we witnessed, but it did give me hope that there's still that hope that maybe a smaller director or a smaller video game or video game with a smaller concept that would work better for a movie. Could still happen someday. What game and what movie that will be, I don't quite know. But Assassin's Creed did give me hope that it can still happen. Really enjoyed the movie for what it was. Could have been better, obviously, and it wasn't quite a top 10 material kind of movie. So I really enjoyed it. If you want to give another video game film adaptation chance, Assassin's Creed is not a bad way to go. Another film I really enjoyed that a lot of people really didn't like, unfortunately, when that was Suicide Squad. I liked it a lot better than Batman vs. Superman. When we get to my worst of the year list, we'll bring up Batman vs. Superman again, so don't worry about that. But I liked Suicide Squad. It was interesting to see a movie about the villains, maybe more so than the heroes this time. And I think that's what made it a little bit more original than a typical superhero movie, is the fact that it was about the villains. It was about how we can't trust them and kind of how they're loose cannon and they're, willing to say and do whatever they want, whenever they want, and however they want. And I liked how it was an interesting way to set up these villains in case DC chooses to use them in later movies that they're going to work on. I'm sure Captain Boomerang will show up in the Flash movie and so forth like that. So really enjoyed the movie. Wasn't completely blown away by it, but I liked it a lot for its own little unusual ways that it handled its story and so forth. And I thought David Ayer did a pretty good job handling this material, considering all the characters and worlds he had to handle within the movie. Good movie, not quite a top 10 material movie though. Another film I really enjoyed that I couldn't quite put on the top 10 list was A Monster Calls. Really enjoyed the movie. Great CGI, great visual effects overall. Good story. Wasn't completely in love with some of the characters in it. Thought certain aspects of the movie could have been improved. Maybe the fantasy element could have been pushed a little bit more, because I think I liked that maybe a little bit more than the drama elements at times. Great movie. It's worth your time and money. I probably won't ever watch it a second time, but once again, didn't quite make the top 10 list, but I do recommend the movie. Another film that I feel like nobody saw, and really kind of the reviews for it were kind of really hugely negative for the most part, was Live by Night. This was Ben Affleck's latest film as a director. Really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was very well handled. Obviously, not everything was done perfectly like some of his other films. I thought The Town is still his best film as a director. I like the movie. I do agree with some people. Maybe as a miniseries, I think more of its story material could have been handled better and would have devoted more time to said story material at times and so forth. But for being a 2-hour film where you kind of were constricted, and Ben Affleck claimed that he was very passionate about this story that Dennis Lehan wrote. I thought he did a good job. It's not an amazing movie, but I thought it was good for the most part. Once again, not quite a top 10 material movie. And I did save the best for last. This is a film that actually just got knocked off to make room for another film that is going to be on my top 10, so it barely made it. It just missed it by one movie, and that's Captain America 3 Civil War. Really enjoyed the movie. I was definitely on the side of Tony Stark in the movie, since Iron Man, the first one, is definitely one of my more favorite films of all time. Really enjoyed the whole political side of it. What makes a hero good? Should they have limitations? The introduction of Black Panther was a lot of fun. Seeing the new Spider-Man by Tom Holland was a lot of fun in it. Not quite a top 10 material movie. I don't know. The films that made my top 10 I thought were just better movies overall. So I don't know. Just something about it. Maybe just Marvel not being as original maybe as they originally are with some stuff like with Doctor Strange and so forth. I don't know what it was about it, but it didn't quite make my top 10 list. So hope you guys enjoyed this list. I do have a best and worst of the year list coming soon, so be on the look for that. And I hope you enjoyed this list of films that were really good, but not quite top 10 material kind of movies.